And I got the idea as just like, there should be more local podcasts where you're interviewing just like, people from, it's as a hobby more than anything.
Sure.
And then I thought of Caleb and I thought, well, this would be a really good project for us to work on together. Because like we've done a lot of these type of interviews, just like being in the conference room and stuff like that. But we're going to try to start expanding, getting out more into, the field and stuff and doing videos, like interview videos, but like in, like wherever the place that the person is working is. So, I mean, that's basically it.
That's awesome. I was thinking about it. I listen to lots of different podcasts from high-end people who have lots of followings. And the neat thing about you is that you're just interviewing average people.
Yeah.
Me, I'm an average guy.
Well, not average, but it's extraordinary people for our,
right.
Yeah.
I meant average in a way, like we don't have, like, I don't have thousands of followers on Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
I don't get paid through YouTube or anything like that. But the stories we have, you interviewed Kenny, Scott, Katie, two phenomenal people who have been huge supporters in my very well. I got to start and end Scott's journey with him.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you went out and did the in Nevis at the Muskie and then came back. Well, because I went to the thing out at Itasca too.
You were out there.
Yeah.
I was out there. My friend Brian and I got out there and rode back in with him just to finish it.
Yeah.
Which was so cool. I mean, what he did was incredible, and what he did it for was even more special. I mean,
and that was an accomplishment that I think no one has ever done before, right?
I believe not. No, not around the U.S. I know I've heard of people going from coast to coast and from Canada to Mexico, but not around the entire U.S. and the outside states. So,
and as a bike rider yourself, I mean, what that would mean. I mean, it's one thing for somebody who doesn't really ride much to be like, okay, I can kind of understand what that is. But I mean, for somebody who is a serious cyclist like you, I mean, just the thought of it would probably mean more to you than it would.
Oh,
to
absolutely.
Really it, right?
Yeah, and I couldn't even do it right now. I mean, Scott spent years, preparing and training for this to make sure his body was ready to go and to accomplish this feat. So I can't even, I'm good on a bike, but that distance, I mean, I'll be honest, I can't even fathom doing it and what it takes, to plan that, to ride it himself, but to have his wife, Katie, who did such an amazing job, being his Sherpa, driving the truck and camper from point A to point B every single day.
Just the logistics of it.
It was incredible, but he had such a strong team, well-equipped team behind him that made it possible. Without that, I know there's people who try to do those feats on their own, but the support he had, not just with him, but even back home, I would do virtual rides for Scott. They got me, I purchased a jersey, one of Scott's jerseys, and I would do virtual rides and do a little appreciation post or awareness post for Scott saying, hey, I'm here riding for you. And this was just an hour on my trainer.
For his milesformoney.org, right?
Yeah. So, just to even play a small part in that journey that he took, I mean, it's incredible and so inspirational. And those two in my triathlon journey, they've been so supportive. They supported me when I got to go over to Spain and be on Team USA. So those two, I mean, they're like family to me.
Yeah,
so.
And Katie's got a lot of experience now with her triathlons.
Yeah,
but you haven't always been a triathlete, right?
No,
I mean, it was like kind of reading some of the stuff in your bio, and basically you started out as a ball player, it sounds like, right? As far as athletics are concerned.
So
from Bertha, Minnesota?
From Bertha, Minnesota, small town. I grew up on a farm 5 miles southwest of town.
Okay.
I graduated with 27 kids in my graduating class.
Yeah.
And,
was your dad a farmer then, or?
My dad is still a farmer.
Still a farmer.
He's still going after it. But I played football, basketball, baseball. I didn't know what triathlon was, honestly.
Yeah, sure.
Until about 2017.
No, when you growing up on a farm, I mean, were you having to do chores and stuff like that? So.
Yes and no. I mean, I'm sure my dad would have loved me to do more chores than I actually did. I loved farming. It was great. There were the days he had to pull me out of the house to get me to come and help, but
Sure.
it was hard work. But I really enjoyed doing it. Especially, going from tilling the fields to planting them and seeing the crops grow all the way to harvesting them and that cycle. It was very rewarding. When I look back on it, I wish I would have been more involved than I was, but I had chores to do and whatnot, whether it was, just at the house from mowing the lawn and weed eating to going over and help feeding cows, or like I said, going out and tilling the field. So
one thing about farmers is they work really hard, right?
Very hard.
Do you feel like you kind of developed a work ethic through that experience, or?
Now I do. It's something I didn't realize when I was younger. Again, for me, I really wanted to go hang out with my buddies, play sports, basketball, baseball, play video games, things like that. But I look back now, and especially my dad has been such an influence, and I realize watching him put in, ton of hours. Farming wasn't his only job. He worked at a lumber yard from 8 to 5, so he'd be up at 6 a.m. in the morning to get over and check the cows, feed the cows, make sure everything is good to go for the day, head off to his job. 5 p.m. hit, he's back home, not even grabbing a bite to eat. He's back over there in the tractor doing something, fixing something. So, I would say I learned a lot of my work ethic from my father watching him.
What, do you think that people from that generation are just cut from a different cloth? Or, because you look at, it's just hard to imagine, how hard people from that generation worked, and doing stuff like that. And is that just sort of like it was expected, or it just became part of their culture, or what? What separates them?
That's great. Great question. I think it's a little bit of both. Because especially watching, so my dad and my grandfather, who, it was generation. This is a generational farm, which for me, I'm in education now. I'm not a farmer, so I won't be farming it when it's passed on.
Right.
But watching my dad and my grandfather, there was expectation that you were out working in the field and you were getting things done. We used to milk cows till about 2016. Then we shut that down after my grandfather passed away, and just did beef cattle and crops. But it was expected, but also it was what my dad knew, and it's still what he knows to this day. I've had conversations with him about hey, do you ever think about hanging it up? And he's like, no. If anything, I'd be done with the 8 to 5 job because the farming's what I know, and it's what he loves, and so it was expected, but more so it's what it was ingrained in him and what he loved to do.
Well, and some of that must have rubbed off on you in some way too, it sounds like.
It absolutely did. Again, I'm not in farming myself, but when it comes to my job as a teacher, or especially within triathlon, I've learned a lot of things from watching my grandfather, watching my father. That has just really been instilled in me, and thankfully I've realized that, and now I'm applying it to, again, my life, my job, my family, triathlon. I've just learned so much from watching them growing up.
And now you have a degree in elementary education from BSU.
Yep.
Did you play any sports collegiately, or?
So right after high school, I went to Central Lakes College in Brainerd.
Brainerd.
And I played 2 years of JUCO ball there.
Yep.
Had a blast.
Baseball or?
Baseball, yep.
What position did you play?
Second base.
Okay.
Yeah, second base. So growing up in high school, I kind of played all over the place. But when I went to CLC, really just was like, I'm going to focus on one position.
Sure.
So played second base for 2 years. Had a blast. After that, transferred up to BSU. Thought about trying out, I would have definitely had to walk on, but I really wanted to focus on my education, because at this point I realized, all right, the next step after this is the real world. And
so it happens after college, right?
And school never came easy to me. I mean, my sophomore year, freshman year there, I was actually diagnosed with ADHD. Got some help with that. I did go on medication, but I started to get more focused and apply myself more. And that was great because by the time I hit college, I really buckled down with my studies and making sure I was staying on top of things, not falling behind. And once I got to BSU again, my focus was, okay, this is going to be your career after this.
Right.
So I just decided to focus on my education.
You got through in 2 years after?
Two years after, yep. So, okay. I mean, it took me, 2 years of my generals, 2 years at BSU, and I was out, and I student taught in New York Mills, and then it was by April. I wasn't even done student teaching or graduated yet, and I already applied and accepted a job teaching kindergarten in
Monaga, okay, yeah.
Yep.
All right, so you're the second kindergarten teacher that's been on this, because we had Jason Durham from Nevis as well. Yeah. But up to this point now in your career, like, you never really, it doesn't sound like you did much distance running or any kind of endurance sports or anything like that at all, right?
I hated running.
Yeah.
I mean,
because running is sort of like a punishment, right?
Well, basketball, it was conditioning. You needed to be conditioned, but there were the days, if you're goofing around, all right, get on the line. We're going to run some killers here or down backs. But, it was my junior year. I kind of started getting into working out. I had some buddies who were kind of influencing me, getting into the weight room or just getting conditioned in general. And I remember trying to go out for some runs like in the fall before basketball started, and let's just say it didn't last long. To say I wasn't a runner, no, I guess I didn't realize, even today, the potential that I had with running. Because again, back then it was like running was a way. Okay, I need to get ready to go for basketball.
It was a means to an end, not the end in and of itself. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So no, I was not a runner. I mean, I could maybe go a couple miles and then we're done.
I'm surprised. I mean, like, so did anyone at BSU ever approach you and say, "Hey, you might be a runner type"? Anything like that? No.
No. Again, I had some friends up there I met. We'd go to the rec center every night and play basketball.
Sure.
Typically, we were going into lift weights, but we'd get in to pick up basketball, and 3 hours later, we're shutting the place down. No, I didn't start running, I would say competitively, until I moved to Monaga here, or Park Rapids.
When was that?
So 2015 is when I moved. I got my job in Monaga. I actually lived just across from the Burger King.
Oh yeah, those apartments there.
No, it was the Conshock house.
Oh, the house there in the corner.
It's the second house from the corner.
Okay,
right across from the BK.
Yeah. I think it's just sold like.
I believe so. Yep. So I lived there, and it was more so again for fitness purposes though.
Right.
I started running because I really wanted to. I wanted to slim down a little bit. I was a little. Bigger, so I wanted to slim down a little bit. So I was like, "Oh, let's cardio."
You're right by the trail,
right? Exactly. And I started signing up for some 5Ks in the area and 10Ks, and a couple of them I actually won. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Like, no spectacular time. I guess you could say, hey, maybe I showed up to the right race. And I managed to place first, But
at that point, you're thinking, I might be a natural, right?
Well, yeah, it sparked some interest in looking further into, okay, what can we do to take this to the next level?
So you started all this with running.
All with running.
Yeah.
Yep. That's really where it started from, was with running. Migrated into CrossFit, kind of went in that avenue. And that was actually how I moved into triathlon, was doing CrossFit with my buddy Dan. We were at Anytime Fitness, and he said, hey, I got a friend who has an entry fee to the Northwoods Triathlon in Nevis.
Yeah.
Do you want to buy it from him?
Sure.
I'm like, okay, well, what's a triathlon?
Right.
Really, up until that point, I didn't know what it was.
And this was 17 now, right?
This was 2017, yeah. So from that point, I was doing running, CrossFit, lifting, but that was the invite into triathlon was from my buddy Dan, and I got that entry fee, and I started the journey on learning how to swim, bike, and run.
Yeah, I was going to say, so what was your background in swimming before you got involved in any of this?
Well, when I was younger, I took 2 years of swimming lessons.
Yeah, and that's about it.
And then out at the lake, lake and whatnot, but not technically swimming like freestyle, like I do today,
like the front crawl or whatever you're using.
It was
is that the stroke that you use when you?
They call it freestyle front crawl.
Okay.
But no, I did not know that. Excellent doggy paddler.
Yeah.
But we were not. I thought I was a good swimmer.
Sure.
I could stay above water.
Yeah.
But when I actually went into the pool for the first time and started, like, I'm watching the people. I just went to the PR pool with my buddy Dan.
Yep.
Justin, who I met for the first time there, and I'm watching, and I'm like, okay, wow, I have a lot to learn. Like, my head's out of water, my feet are almost touching the bottom of the pool. It feels like I felt like a snowplow.
Sure.
Just so inefficient.
Did you get any coaching then, or?
So some tips and tricks. YouTube had some good videos to watch. But really, up until that point, I was just trying to piece things together. More so, I would call it muscling through the water. Mm-hmm. Absolutely destroying myself by the time I got out. Even on a 500-yard swim, I'd get out to go on the bike, and I'm like, oof, I am gassed. But, over the years now, hiring a coach, that has helped immensely.
Developing your stroke and making it easier to do the swim?
Absolutely. So we've come a long ways, and it's taken years, I've seen some people who get into the sport and they become frustrated, especially with the swim, because it can be very daunting, if you don't know how to swim, and especially if you go to a big event and they have these big pack starts, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, because there's so many people in there.
So many people.
Yeah, Katie was telling me about that when, because when I think, okay, the ocean's big, or, wherever it is, like, there's a lot of space. Why are people on top of each other like that,
Well, and even like the Northwoods, they have the elite group, and then they go with all the age groups. And those packs are still big enough that they can cause you some anxiety when you start in that group. So just for me, the biggest thing was getting comfortable with that as well.
Yeah.
I wasn't anxious by any means. I didn't have a feeling like I'm going to drown. But, when you're swimming as hard as you can inefficiently, and you're 250 yards out in Lake Beltane and you can't touch, there's still some anxiety that creeps in. You're breathing heavy, and you maybe take some water to the face, and you're kind of choking. It gets a little like, oh, okay.
That first one, you're kind of wondering, am I going to be able to do this, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it can be very anxiety ridden if you're just not prepared for it.
Is swimming like the biggest barrier to entry for most people with a triathlon, would you say?
That's what I see the most. Is the biggest fear is that swim. Just because, again, not saying if you're not technically sound, but again, if it's a mass start and you got all that splashing, it's just kind of chaotic. Even when people watch it, that can be the precursor to be like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary. I get it. So
yeah. But you ended up obviously finishing that one.
I did, and I looked back. I think I had a time of 1 hour and 17 minutes. And I had no clue, honestly.
Yeah. So what are the distances on that one again?
So 500-yard swim, 14-mile bike, and a 5K run.
And a 5K,
out back on the Heartland Trail.
Okay.
Great event. It's small, but actually when I did my first one, it was sold out. Because again, my entry fee, if Dan's friend had not been able to go and transfer it to me, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Because it was sold out.
Yeah.
So super thankful for that happened. I mean, because if it hadn't, who knows if I would even be on this journey that I have been on with triathlon. But Yeah, I placed 39th overall.
Okay.
Which again, didn't really care
How many
about.
contestants were in that?
Well, so I believe they capped the race at about 300 people.
Okay. So your first try, you're 37th out of 300.
Yeah, you know, men, that would be men and women.
Sure.
But the cool part that really, again, ignited the spark too, and I have some buddies who will be like, well, I actually raced. I beat you in that race, but they were in an older age group. Well, I took first in my age division.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, I ended up leaving the race because I was like, all right, we're done. So I took off for home, and my friend stayed around, and he calls me and he said, hey, you won your age group. They just called your name.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pick up your plaque for you?
Yeah.
I was like, what? I won my age group. What does that even mean?
Yeah, I mean, and that must have been a pretty competitive age group too, given that it's 2017. And...
You know, it should have been. I think, and this is again, my friend gives me a little flack for, is that I believe there were only 5 of us.
Okay.
In that age group.
Yeah.
I just happened to come out first. But again, the age group win was just a little cherry on top. Sure. I had such a fun time.
Yeah.
I was already signing up.
What was it about it that you like? What were you experiencing, or what feelings were you feeling during that made you like it so much?
I think it was just seeing all the people out there just enjoying themselves, being active. Like that was just, I mean, the run again was an out and back on the Heartland Trail, and when you turn around, you're seeing all these people and they're smiling, and you know, some people were giving you high fives, cheering you on, say, hey, way to go, good job.
Yeah.
Like that camaraderie from in 2017 when I started, that was just, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And it's never ended. I mean, even till this day, every event I go to, whether it's the Nevis Triathlon, the Average Joe, or you know, Square Lake 70.3, the camaraderie you see on the side of the course, on the course, is just, it's unmatched.
Yeah.
And I just love it.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mention camaraderie in a sport that is an individual sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it about that makes it such a group experience?
Just the encouragement.
Just everybody that's involved, just the energy.
Yeah, you know, like, I don't know these people. I mean, a lot of the people who show up, I wouldn't be able to tell you their first names, but they're gonna cheer you on. They're gonna give you high fives. They're just smiling. There, you know, that energy reflects off of them into you, and it's just, and that's where one thing triathlon has been so giving in that aspect. It's just been such an encouraging sport. I've met so many amazing people. I can't tell you how many races I show up to now, and I have, you know, buddies upon buddies that we sit and chat before the race. We sit and chat after the race. It's just...
So after that one, you kind of got the bug, and you get to the point where you do your first full Ironman Triathlon, right?
Yeah.
And that was the Michigan Titanium.
Yeah. So
talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
Funny story. So my buddy Justin and I, we talk about our bucket list and goal events we want to do. You know, my buddy Justin got me to do my first 50K. So we checked that off our bucket list. And he had already done a full distance triathlon, Ironman distance. And I said, you know what? Someday I want to do one. And it just so happened there was a full distance off-road triathlon out in Walhalla, North Dakota, called the Wilderman.
Off-road triathlon.
Off-road, yeah. So this was going to be, it was the 2.4 mile swim.
Yeah.
But then you were going to hop on either a mountain bike or gravel bike.
Yeah.
And you were going to go down dirt roads and four-wheeler trails, minimum maintenance roads.
And that's a 100-mile bike ride?
112-mile bike ride.
112 mile,
Yep.
okay.
And then after that bike, you were going to put on your trail shoes and you were going to go run on trails, gravel roads.
Yeah.
And actually, there was a good, I think he said, mile portion of it where you were trudging upstream. So
in water.
In water.
Yeah.
So to me, this was an extreme full distance. And Justin helped me train for it. unfortunately, about 3 weeks before the event was supposed to happen, I got an email from the race organizers saying that due to the amount of rain and weather that they had throughout the summer, it just wasn't going to be possible to hold it. The trails that we were going to ride our bikes on were so washed out. Oh. They actually said in the email, you're going to spend more time running and carrying your bike than you are riding it.
Yeah.
And that just wouldn't be a part of the experience that they wanted, which looking back, I was bummed, but I was also very grateful because after that, I got that email. I called Justin and I said,
yeah, because you had all this training in you.
I had all this training done, and I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Just go do a sprint or Olympic? No, I put in all this time, 6-hour gravel bike rides going 12 miles an hour. Yeah. I need to
do a triathlon.
I want to do the full. Mm-hmm. So I hopped on, there's a website you can go on, and it shows you all the races in the U.S., from sprints to fulls. And so I went on there, I clicked on the filter, found some fulls, and the two that popped up that were closest to me was Ironman Wisconsin, which is in the beginning of September, and Michigan Titanium. Well, I looked at Ironman Wisconsin first, which I thought would be fun, but once I started to go through the registration process, at that point, it would have been well over $1,000 just to register.
Really?
Yeah. Ironman they do a great job organizing the races. It's a brand.
Sure.
But at that point, the tiered pricing system was all the way up.
Okay.
And with registration fees and whatnot, it would have been more than I was willing to foot.
Sure.
And on top of that, I would have needed to get hotels and whatnot to get out there. So I said, all right, let's look at this Michigan Titanium. Hopped on their website. Okay, it was about $500 to register. So I'm like half. I'm like, I can do that. And I'll figure out the lodging and whatnot. It was a 12-hour drive out to Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like right in the center of the state. And just sort of east of the lake, right?
Yeah. So you went around the lake.
But you can take a ferry, I think, from Milwaukee there, right?
So you can. And I looked into that. Unfortunately, the way things were going to work out with me getting out there, the ferry wasn't going to be even running. So I ended up signing up for the Michigan Titanium, which was great because it actually gave me another month to train, which I was able to switch out my gravel bike and put some time in on my road bike. Do some more road running, just get more prepared for that. Now this was coincidentally, it was a USAT, United States Triathlon sanctioned national championship, which I paid no mind to. I just wanted to get my full in. Yeah. So I called up a buddy. I said, hey, you want to take this 12-hour trip out to Grand Rapids, Michigan? Be my support. Yeah. Help me with my bags, be out on the course for me too, if I need anything, and help to drive as well. So we took off on a Friday evening. It was late. We got out there early in the morning.
Was the race day a Sunday?
Race day was Sunday. Okay. So had to be out there on Saturday though. Yeah. Because these typically fulls, they want you to check your gear in, your bikes the day before. Okay. Yeah. So they put it into the corral. They have security there watching your equipment and whatnot, making sure it's not touched. So got that all set. And then, Sunday morning, woke up and it was race day. Got ready to go. We had the athlete meeting. They're talking about how, national champions are going to be crowned today. And, they're going to qualify to be on Team USA and go to Ibiza, Spain to compete in the World Championship long distance race. Yeah. Again, I hear this and I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Interesting, yeah.
But for me, my sole goal was to start and finish that race, right? Which almost didn't happen. On that bike, we, over that 112 miles, endured over 5,000 feet of elevation, and it was 2 loops. And when I got back to the turnaround to go out for the second loop, I had deep conversation with myself about if I wanted to go back out there.
So what's going on in your mind at that moment?
Oh, pain, first off.
Physical pain?
My legs, they were tired. My body was tired. I'll be honest, I didn't fuel as well as I should have. But, you know, I turned around and you pick up a special needs bag. And in that special needs bag, I had a couple Schmuckers PB&J sandwiches.
Yeah.
And a couple of those quick, easy squeeze applesauce pouches.
Sure.
So I grabbed those and I took off.
Yeah.
And I started to eat those and started to get some fluids in me a little more and kind of found a resurgence of energy.
Like a second wind.
Second wind.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly what it is. And I took off on that second loop, got back and I finished it. And then transitioned to the run. And honestly, the run I felt so good. I don't know where that came from, especially after my legs feeling as bad as they did.
And so for those who don't know, I mean, the run is a full marathon.
It's a full marathon. Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
And to be honest, I did not prepare as well for this as I should have. Mm-hmm. But thankfully, I prepared well enough to get through. And I actually ran my second fastest marathon time after doing
all of that.
Which, again, I got off on the run. And I would say in the sport of triathlon with the swim, the bike, and the run is my forte, my specialty. I get off that bike and I feel like I can just go. And that's what happened at the Michigan Titanium. It was 4 loops, out and backs. And again, the camaraderie. It just, people I didn't even know were cheering me on, you know, way to go. Awesome. Keep it up. You're doing great. I paced myself. I made sure at the aid stations I was taking in good nutrition.
Yep.
And I had such a great time on that run. That was honestly the most memorable part. The swim, it took me an hour and a half. It was about, to put it into perspective, about 2 minutes and 30 seconds per 100 yards. Yeah. Which is slow. I was hoping for a lot faster. But when I came out and I saw an hour and 30 minutes, I was a little disheartened, but hey, I transitioned. I got on my bike.
Yeah.
And, again, the bike was tough, especially with that elevation. It took me a little over 6.5 hours. That's, a long time on a bike. But that run just felt so good. It's like, again, on that bike, I caught that second wind. I don't know what it was on that run, whether it was a third wind or just a whole new wind in general.
Well, a runner at your level, because when I mentioned to you before that I ran a marathon myself, but for somebody like me, it's just the entire thing is just really painful. And I mean, not really painful. What I mean to say is that it's very uncomfortable. I'm tired all the time and sort of just get slogging through it.
Sure.
But I imagine from what you just said, somebody who's like an elite athlete, let's just put it that way, that when you're running it, I mean, do you even feel tired at all? Or, I mean, do you just kind of feel like you can just keep going and going and going, like the Energizer Bunny or something like that,
That's great. Great question, because now, not really. It's a lot easier for me to get through those distances, but I've trained for it.
Yeah.
I've endured the workouts that I need to do in order for that to happen, to compare.
So you do your suffering more when you're training.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So then when I get to the race, I can push myself at a level that's competitive, but I'm still in a place where I know I can get through it, pushing myself at those paces that I need to. When I ran my first, Fargo Marathon, I believe it was probably 2016. I think I ran the Fargo Marathon was my first one. And that was a whole different experience. That hurt.
Yeah.
I got to mile 20. I ran way too fast. I think I started that. I went out at about 7-minute paces. Way too fast. I was cooking. Now, here's the thing. I felt good.
Yeah,
I felt good.
It took me about 5.5 hours to finish a marathon, by the way.
It could have very easily happened for me because at about mile 20, my body started saying, "Oh no, Nick, we are not gonna continue to do this." I I barely took in nutrition. I think I took a couple gels in. I was
Sure.
sipping water,
Right.
But, looking back at that compared to today, yeah, back then it was a lot of suffering during the event. But today it's because of the work that I put in, and it pays off.
Yeah.
One of my mottos is the hard work pays off.
Yeah.
And it absolutely does. I put my body through the work that it needs to. So then when I show up on event day,
That's payday.
it's payday, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to get after it. And I'm pushing myself, but it's a lot easier now than it was back then. That's for sure.
What's like, and just, I think what your note said is that you base that Michigan Titanium, you won that. I mean, you won your age group in that.
So I won my age group, which again, my sole purpose was to finish it.
Yeah.
I finished in 12 hours and I believe it was 12 hours and 6 seconds, which is fantastic. We actually, when we sat down and kind of did a race prediction, we thought, if I finish in 14 to 15 hours, that would be great. So I crushed my expectations,
really,
which was fantastic. I mean, when I came down, there's a slight downhill, and then you rounded the corner to go underneath the arch, and in the middle of the arch was your time. And when I saw 12 hours, I was like, wow, holy cow, I crushed this thing. For me, I crushed this thing, and then I got my phone from my friend who came with me, and I got a call from Justin, and he's ecstatic. He's like, dude, congratulations. You won your age group. And I'm like, I'm shocked. I'm like, what do you mean I won my age group? At an event this size? And again, when the race started, there were only 5 of us in my age group.
Yeah.
But I still went out there and I guess I did what I needed to do.
You beat them all.
I beat them all, right? Some people might look at it as, well, you still only finished in 12 hours, but hey, I did what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And that moment changed my life forever, because that is a real moment where I was like, Nick, you can take this to the next level. Like, if you put in the work, nothing's possible. Nothing's impossible in this sport for you. I mean, granted, like becoming a pro, like that's super hard to do, but being competitive in the area and within the state, that was the moment when I was like, all right, I could do it. Now, I was like, oh, I'm a national champion too. It was the overall winners, and then if you won your age group, you were crowned a national champion. So I was like, wow, sweet. I called my wife Abby, and I'm like, I won my age group. I'm a national champion, and I qualified to go to Ibiza, Spain for Team USA. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I know. I what? And we were ecstatic and celebrating, but kind of was like, yeah, I don't know. That's great, but that's a big trip. Yeah. That's overseas. We've taken a couple cruises and whatnot.
Sure. It's on an island in Spain, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So we're like, okay, well, and I was talking with some people, and they said, yeah, it's going to cost some money. Sure. To fly over there. You're going, lodging and whatnot.
Did any of that get taken care of by like USA Triathlon or anything like that?
So no. So to be on the team, so you qualify to be on the team, but then you pay fees to be on the team and get the gear. Which is fine, I thought it was a great honor to even be able to qualify for something like that. Yeah. To be able to even represent Team USA was just fantastic in itself. Yeah. But the big thing was, okay, how are we going to fund this thing? So I had a lot of family who helped out. Yeah. I did a little GoFundMe because at the Michigan Titanium, that was one of the race directors when I was talking with them. They encouraged me. They said, go do it. Like this is where I kept this saying when I got home and I was talking with people about it was, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Yeah. I don't ever know if I will do an event that will qualify me to do something like that again. I hope so. Yeah. But you just don't know.
You got to seize that. Yeah.
I didn't even know that was going to happen. Right. And it did. And it changed my path in triathlon forever. Yeah. I said, I got home and we're talking about it some more. I'm like, what the heck? Let's go do it. You know, I coach cross country basketball. So I was like, you know, I can take those coaching paychecks and put it towards it. And again, one of the race directors said, well, go do a GoFundMe.
Sure.
People do that all the time for big events like that to get help with.
Yeah.
And I could not believe the amount of not just emotional, but financial support people gave to me to be able to make this dream come true. I mean, it helped immensely. I didn't get the whole thing funded,
sure,
which was fine, but you know, I got enough to help pay for plane tickets. And another really cool thing that came out of that was a couple colleagues I work with. They had hosted a foreign exchange student who coincidentally lived on the island.
Oh,
yeah. So
that's really helpful.
It was. So they connected me up with Peter and Marta, who live on the island. That's so Clara was the foreign exchange student. Peter and Marta, her mom and dad, they connected me up with them. I got talking with them, and they said, come stay with us.
Wow.
We would love that.
Yeah.
They said, we're gonna come cheer you on, and race day we'll have our American flags.
Oh,
and
that's so cool.
No, it was so a connection and a friendship was made there too with people who I've never met before, but they were willing to open their home for me, my wife, my sister-in-law came with, my cousin and his girlfriend came with. So, I mean, I even had family. I had such a amazing support group over there. This family we were staying with, it was just an experience that again, it changed my life forever.
Yeah.
I'm never going to forget it.
So how did that race go?
That race went very well. Again, this was the first time I had hired a coach, so I had put in some serious training for it.
Yeah.
You know, it was an odd distance though. It was right in the middle of a half and a full. It was more than a half, but not quite a full. They do things in kilometers, which I'm terrible at
I can't figure that out either. Yeah.
So I'm trying to. I want to say it was like a 2K swim. It was like an 80K bike, and then
it's like, what does that
18K.
even mean? Yeah.
Right. The long and short of it is, the total was about 7 hours and 30 minutes.
Okay, so it was a shorter.
It was shorter, right? But one thing that I remember being told, you know, I was going over to race. I wanted to do well, but one thing that stuck with me was my coach told me, he said, you know, you're going over to be competitive at this thing, but remember to take it in.
Yeah.
You know, on that swim, I'm out in the Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, just beautiful. Unfortunately, we had like 6-foot roller waves. So it was tough. There were actually quite a few swimmers who got pulled, and or when they finished the swim, they were just so disoriented they couldn't even go on to the bike.
Wow.
It was tough. You'd go to site, and if you were at the bottom of one of those rollers, you weren't seeing a buoy. You kind of just were like, okay, put my head down and keep swimming. I just remember a couple times just picking my head up and looking, and you could look back at the city of Ibiza, and it's old. It's beautiful. Like, it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So
what of you?
What of you? You know, you don't get that out in Fishhook Lake, out in Lake Beltane, Spirit Lake down in Monaga. Like, so I took that in. You know, I took the.
How was the water temperature? Did it feel warm or cold, or?
You know, it was chilly.
Yeah.
But once you got in it, you know, I had a wetsuit on, and once I started going, it felt great.
Okay.
Clear water, beautiful.
Yeah.
You could see the fish swimming below you. Even with the rollers, like it was still a phenomenal swim. Funny enough, was my first time swimming in salt water, so that took some getting used to, making sure I wasn't. Well, that's another thing that got people was swallowing too much salt water. You take too much of that in, and it starts to upset your stomach too.
Sure.
But I managed to make it through that. I transitioned onto the bike, and I took off on the 70 to 80K bike, which was even more beautiful. I mean, you got these rolling hills of the island of Ibiza. Again, over this 70 to 80K was still over 5,000 feet of elevation.
And the Spanish people take cycling very seriously, don't they?
They sure do. They sure do. They love it over there. Well, and honestly,
it's like one of their big spectator sports, right?
It's one of their big spectator sports, but also it's one of their means of transportation.
Sure.
When we were there before the race driving around, there are bicycles in with traffic. I mean, you're sitting to wait to go through.
Yeah, it's such a part of the European culture.
That's how they, small cars or bicycles.
Right.
I mean, and they're right in with you. I mean, you should, I went out on a training ride when I first got over there, cause I had to pack my bike up and put it together. So you got to make sure everything is good to go and nothing's damaged from the flight, which unfortunately I had a bent back rotor disc, which I had to get fixed. So I was out on this training ride though, and they have a lot of roundabouts over there. They don't, not a lot of stoplights, roundabouts, and cars and bicycles alike are just zooming through these roundabouts. And I stop because I'm like, I don't feel comfortable doing this. I kind of had to wait for
Did you practice on the one we have south of town?
No, I did not. I did not. So, but it was cool to see the culture. I mean, just the way they do things, their lifestyle, the food, phenomenal. Oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, when I think of that, Ibiza, I think of, this is the place where they have like the EDM techno stuff and all that, right? I mean, that's what it's known for, isn't it? Yeah.
Ibiza is the party island of
the party
Spain.
island, right?
There's nightclubs block after block. And
it's almost like isn't it almost like a Vegas type atmosphere there?
For sure. They love to have a good time. They have their clubs and whatnot. We didn't go to any clubs. My cousin did. He got to go experience one. He loves music and whatnot. Him and his girlfriend got to go experience an EDM club.
Sure.
It was great. They had a fantastic time. But Ibiza is honestly, you could say it's the island that never sleeps. Like they go late. And speaking of like, again, the food, our host family, like they eat, it's normal for them to eat dinner
like 10 or 11 yeah I know that's another thing about their culture. It's a little odd, isn't it?
But their food is so phenomenal. They just when we were there, we ate so clean, the ham, it was just so good. Like,
so is there some agriculture on the island there too?
Do.
Is it,
yeah, farming and whatnot.
I imagine a lot of seafood.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So again, back to this bike ride, it was just so beautiful. I mean, you started leaving the town of it's old Ibiza, with all the old buildings. There's a giant cathedral up on the hill. It's just so beautiful. But you take off out into the countryside, and I made sure I took it in. I was pushing myself, but there were moments where I was like, wow, I cannot believe I'm here right now. And then the same thing on the run. We're back into old Ibiza, and I get to run through the cobblestones, through these old relic buildings, up by the cathedral. And
what an experience.
Oh, I mean, it's again, like I said, a once in a lifetime experience. In a sense that if I go do another one, it will probably never be back in Ibiza.
Yeah.
So it was a once in a lifetime experience, and I'm never going to forget it. Man, it's just so memorable.
Yeah. So you finished that, and what year was that?
So that was 2023.
Okay, so not too long ago.
Long ago, yeah.
Yeah. And now you are, what is it, the chair of the Headwaters Triathlon Club? I didn't even know such a thing existed.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, it's been now, I was voted to be vice president of the Headwaters Tri Club and director of outreach. So we have a small club. It's been around for a long time, and I've really only been participating in the group for a couple years, ever since I more so got in competitively. But we're a smaller group, but that's one thing I'm hoping to do in this position is to spread the word more on the Headwaters Tri Club. You know, Scott and Katie Freetag are a part of it. My buddy Justin is a part of it. My friend Kenny's a part of it. So we're just one of my goals here this next year, I'm taking it upon myself, is to spread the word, just so people know that we even have a triathlon club. Because whether you're even, you know, you've thought, hell, I'd like to do a triathlon. This is a great place to start. We have such a tight
resources, like,
right? You know, like there's coaches in the group. Myself, I'm a triathlon and running coach right now. So I'd love to be able to help people start their journey, or even if they're a seasoned vet who's moved, maybe they've moved into the area and they want to get connected to a group. Personally, for me, Zach, I have to train alone with the level that I'm at right now, because there are workouts I just can't do with other people. I have to do them at my intensity, my watts, my paces. But I tell you what, anytime I can train with somebody, I'm going to take that opportunity to train with somebody.
Why do you like to do that? What's good about that?
Probably the big thing is the accountability. It holds me accountable, because if somebody says, hey, let's meet up Saturday and do a 10-mile run, and I say, okay, I'll be there, I'm going to show up. I'm not going to back out. I'm going to get there. Now, if it's just, I got a 10-mile run on Saturday and it's just myself, I'll, more so than none, I got
a sniffle, or it's a little cold out, or, you know, I didn't get enough sleep last night, or something like that, right? Negative self-talk.
I can push it off, or I can even say, I'll do it tomorrow. You know, it's just when I can get together with somebody, it's accountability for me, it's accountability for them. Plus, the amount of times that I get out and work out with somebody, and aside from triathlon, the connections we make, the conversations we have are so in depth and so engaging. Like those, if it's a 10-mile run, it goes by just like that. Like it's like, where did the time go?
Because when you're when you're running and you're training and stuff like that, aren't you supposed to kind of be at a pace where you can still talk and have a conversation?
For sure, there's, you know, zone 2 training we talk about all the time. It's a nice easy pace where you're that's where you work on building up that base. Those runs are fantastic to do with others. You know, if I can do those harder, say a threshold or anaerobic session with somebody who's at my level, great, but you're not talking.
There aren't too many people who are at your level in zone 2.
Well, not so much, but
running a 7-minute mile,
right?
You know.
But still, again, you know, you're pushing yourself at a pace too, where you're just you can't have those conversations. But still, I tell you what, you know, last summer, Kenny and I would show up to the track in PR here and do some track sessions, and we weren't doing the same workout.
Interval training,
you know, mile repeats, 800
like
repeats,
fartlek or something like
for
that.
sure. You know, we weren't running side by side, we weren't running the same paces, but the fact that we both showed up still pushed each other.
I'm a big proponent of that too. I mean, you know, it's that's why I like going with Nick and you know, and I have you know, my lifting buddy is Mark and stuff, and just because for that reason, it's just because it's better to do that with other people and have that level of accountability. So no matter whether you're a triathlete or just somebody trying to maintain here, but you know, it's true. It's so important.
I think when it comes down to it, it's about accountability.
Consistency,
right? But then from that, again, those friendships, those bonds are made as well, because just the same as you know, I got the same group of guys. We go over to Hammerfit Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 a.m.s. We're there together. You know, maybe to start, not a whole lot of words are said, but the fact that we all showed up, you know, and at the end of it, we'll hop in the sauna for 15, 20 minutes. And that's when we have our decompression sessions and conversations. Like, it's just that's what it's all about.
That sauna over at Hammerfit's so good, because you can actually heat it up.
You can. And I tell you what, a lot of things come out there. You know, it's just a gab session. I mean, I mean, I've often joked like, man, we should have a podcast in here,
right?
You know, sauna
sure.
sessions, like the things we talk about. Sometimes they're deep, you know. We can go all over the place,
you know. But you should, if you're going to do that, you should also like have the ice bath part of it too, so that you guys could go in the ice bath and have part of the conversation, and then go back into
So coincidentally, this last week we talked about that.
Yeah,
we said,
yeah.
you know, they should get cold plunges.
I thought about that too.
So
yeah,
that'd be next level. Like that's intense.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Have you ever tried it?
I have.
Yeah. Yeah. I just went to L&M and bought a 100-gallon.
Yes.
Like a just like I guess which how you water cattle or something like that, and you fill it up.
Cattle trough. Yeah.
Cattle trough. Yeah. But you know, if you go in there, I mean, I've done it in pretty much you know, late winter, early spring. You know, so I mean the water is like, you know, 34, 35 degrees and stuff like that. You can stay in for about I mean, at least for me, you stay in for about a minute, but you get out of there in the morning and you get the feeling of, I just did the hardest thing I'm going to have to do all day. It's just the mental thing of getting in.
Right.
It's so hard.
You know, when we work out and we get the blood pumping, you get like an adrenaline rush. I swear the same thing comes from a cold plunge.
Yeah.
And you're not even physically exerting yourself, but it's that cold temperature.
It's mental. It's a mental exertion.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just, it's next level. And that, I mean, that's awesome. I've thought about that too, is getting a cattle trough and throwing it in the backyard, especially now. Oh my goodness.
So
I couldn't
easy.
imagine. But
well, then the other thing you can do too is if you want to do it all year, and you, as you know, growing up on a farm, they have those like, I don't know if they're coils or whatever it is that you can put in the trough so that it doesn't freeze.
Yeah.
So that if you could do it in January.
I know. Oh, I'm sure you had to take a sledgehammer to get that top layer off, but
that's all you got to do though.
Yeah,
because everything else underneath is ready to go, so you're good.
I have a friend of mine who lives over on the Fishhook River, just kind of just past A&W.
Yeah.
And he has a barrel sauna we built by hand, actually, which was such a cool process. But put that down by the river, and we would fire that thing up and go out there in the middle of the winter. One of the times we actually had to chisel through ice on top and go in there, and if that's tough. You don't stay in there long, but it's the feeling, like you said, in the moment, you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You can barely talk.
Yeah, you can't. It just takes your breath away.
It takes your breath away. But you get out, and you're like, and your blood starts coming back in your limbs.
Your skin turns all red.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's a different feeling, and it's a great feeling.
Yeah,
I mean, you just feel refreshed and rejuvenated.
They say, I mean, if you do that before you go lift or before you go work out, it's supposed to be really helpful for that too,
very
right?
helpful for that. Yeah, you know, and that's another conversation we had about the cold plunges, the benefits, whether before or after, and you know, there's pros and cons for both, but at the end of the day, whatever works for you. I mean, if you do it before and that helps you wake up and get ready to go, you know, obviously it's so good for reducing inflammation.
Right.
So even after, you know, they say...
Well, Nick Brett says you should never do it after. He says you should sauna after and plunge.
Yeah. And they do say that. And there, you know, there's the research out there for both. Whether they say, well, if you do it right after, you're slowing the blood flow to your muscles, which isn't good. You know, you need that
because you were trying to build the muscle.
And in order to help recovery, you want that blood flow into the muscle. So if you cold plunge, you know, that restricts the blood flow.
Sure.
You know, we were talking about it, and it's like, well, at the end of the day, do whatever works for you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, isn't that the truth? Because it's like everybody's different.
Everybody is different.
And you have to just figure it out, because, you know, you can ask people for tips and things like that, like, what do you do for this or what do you do for that? But, you know, for the most part, it's all just whatever has worked for you in the past is what you should do. Right?
Absolutely. Well,
and that goes for nutrition too, right? Because that's my biggest downfall. I don't have good nutrition, which is why I don't really ever, you know.
And that's one thing I've had to learn, is because when I first started out, I wanted to follow what the pros were doing or what so-and-so is doing. And it's not training as well. There's cookie cutter programs.
Right.
Which are fine. I'm not saying they're not. You know, as a coach now, we do have some generic plans that we can hand out. But, you know, if you really want to take it to the next level, you got to find out what works for you.
Yeah.
Nutritionally, you got to find out what works for you with training. And that's one reason why I have a coach now.
Yeah.
Is because I want individualized, personalized training that's going to fit for me. You know, what works for so-and-so might not work for me. And that's actually kind of what can get people in some hot water with training and nutrition, is when you try to follow what somebody else is doing.
Yeah.
You're not built like them, you know,
right.
Whether or not, you know, whether it's next level or you're maybe lower than they are, like everybody's different. So that's one reason why lately over the last couple of years, I've hired a coach. I've fine-tuned my nutrition for myself, and I've stopped trying to follow what others are doing.
Yeah.
And I do what works for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
So, you're going for a personal best in Grandma's in June,
Yes.
right? And I think you've run a 3:03.
Yeah.
So now you're trying to get sub 3 probably for this Grandma's, right?
We are. Last June, I attempted sub 3 at Fargo and fell, 4 minutes short, if you will.
Yeah.
Which crushed me, but also motivated me. I was very happy. It was a big time PR, because my fastest marathon to date before that was 3 hours and 35 minutes.
Okay.
So
you shaved off a good 31 minutes off your time. Yeah.
So I was so happy.
Mm-hmm. But there's something about that 3 you want to get below 3. Yeah.
I had a goal, and that's the thing about me, is now when I have goals, if I fall short, it hurts, but it also motivates me, So I was going to take a break, but I thought, why? Mm-hmm. Now is any better time than any other time to go and attack this. So I've done Fargo, I've done Bemidji. I was like, all right, let's go somewhere else and attempt this. Yeah. And I've heard that Grandma's is a good marathon, if you're prepared to attempt the sub 3. So I thought, all right, let's go do this. Kenny wanted to go do it. So I'm like, okay, let's train up. Let's go do this. So yeah, end of June, hoping to make that happen. So the training will start beginning of February here for that. So that's the big goal. That's the first big goal of the season.
Right.
Is to go try and get that sub 3 hours at Grandma.
Yeah. So just a couple more questions. Yeah. One is, if somebody's interested in getting into running and all of that stuff, but they're, not sure whether it's something that they could really do or something that they're interested in, like what kind of, like say like you've got a student or something like that, like maybe you coach cross country and all that. Like how do you encourage people to get involved in the sport in terms of, I'm not saying selling it necessarily, but kind of showing them the benefits of the sport.
Yeah. What I try to tell people, and this is what I've had to tell myself over the years, especially when I got started in triathlon competitively. Again, those first 4 or 5 years was just kind of for fun. Yeah. I loved it. But then once I switched that next gear, I had to really believe in myself and tell myself, if you have your goals, if you have your dreams and you want to do something, go do it. Within reason, obviously. Again, would I love to be a professional triathlete? Of course. It's just like back in elementary school when I wanted to be a professional basal player when I grew up.
Right, right, yeah. Professional second baseman.
Well, right.
The Twins might have an opening.
I had my dream. That was a dream, but was it within reason? Nah. Probably not.
Okay.
But for me, I thought, hey, I can be competitive in this sport. So what if I put in the work, again, hard work pays off, right? Yeah. So for somebody else who's like, I'd like to get into running, but I don't know if I can. Well, I try to encourage them and motivate them. If you want to do it, you just need to start. That's really what it takes. I mean, because for me, again, if I wouldn't have accepted that entry fee to the Northwoods Triathlon in 2017, I wouldn't have started. Right. But I accepted it. That was my start. Just the acceptance of.
Well, you accepted it and you showed up, right? I mean, because that people say, what's the first step to having a good job interview? Well, number one is show up. Right?
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because another thing that I've heard this, you know, it's a little saying that about 3 frogs on a log, all right? And one of the frogs says, I'm going to jump in the water. Well, how many frogs are left on the log? Mm-hmm. Well, you might say 2, right? I mean, just your train of thought. You're thinking,
yeah, but it's actually 3, right?
It's still 3 because he didn't actually take the action, you know?
Right.
When I heard that, I'm like, Nick, how many times have you said you're going to do something, but then you don't because you haven't taken action on it? And that's what I try to relay to other people. I'm like, if you want to get into running or you want to do a triathlon, or it doesn't even have to be athletic. If you want to advance in your job, you know,
talk is cheap.
Talk is cheap. What are you going to do about it though? You know, you got to take action upon it to make it happen.
I think that's such a universal piece of wisdom and advice, you know, because I've had lawyers in the past too. When I first coming up, I remember talking to some lawyer back in New York and telling him, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do that. And he had the same advice. He's just like, okay, well, don't just talk about it. Just do it. Do it. Like, don't just tell the other side you're going to do it. Yeah. Just do it. Yeah. You know, which is like the Nike slogan. But you know, now that I think of it, but it's true though. To a certain extent, it's like you can, you know, like you can only say you're going to do things so much or mentally prepare so much, but until you actually just go out and do the Nevis triathlon or you know, whatever the case may be, and now you're in it. But so
look at Forrest Gump,
right? Yeah, he just started running and he kept running.
Yeah, right. I mean, the same goes for anybody. You just got to do it, you know.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to end with this. You know, when you're in the middle of like something really hard, like a race or like a triathlon where you're really trying your best and you're just like, almost like when you're describing the bike race at the Michigan Titanium when you came around that second side, what do you have kind of going through your head? Like what are you telling yourself? I mean, are you listening to music? Are you repeating something to yourself, or like how are you dealing with, you know, those forces within you that are trying to tell you that it's okay to quit, you know, you don't really have to try as hard, you know, all you really have to do is finish? Like, what's motivating you, and what's the positive self-talk that you're giving yourself to get out of a rut like that?
That's great, because, you know, for triathlon, for the most part, the swim and the bike, you can't wear headphones. Okay. You know, obviously in the water, you know, Bluetooth headphones don't work. No. And for the bike, for safety reasons, they don't allow you to wear them. So it is very mentally taxing. And like for me, again, on that bike, you're just with your thoughts. Yeah. Which, again, you go to some dark places. You're in that, we call it the pain cave. You're right. And you're deep in the pain cave, and it's dark. You don't have a light, and you're like, I can either go deeper, or I can walk out. Yeah, like I could have got off my bike and walked back to the finish line and been done. But for me, one, the thought of quitting in the middle of something, I thought about it, but it wasn't an option. I really wasn't going to allow myself to quit. Even though I had that thought, like, I really want to, I wasn't going to let myself. And the drive to finish, you know, I drove 12 hours out to this thing. I trained.
You paid $500.
I paid $500. I trained hours and hours and hours for this. That drive to finish kept me going. Right.
You weren't going to let yourself down.
I wasn't going to let myself down. And also the people who were supporting me too. Yeah. My wife, my buddy Justin, who I sat down with, and we wrote out a plan. Like, I didn't want to let them people down as well, and I didn't want to let myself down. You know, again, I put in the work. I was going to finish this thing.
Is this all just a conversation that's going on in your head? Like, you got like an angel and a devil here, you know?
Big time. Sometimes it feels like the devil on both shoulders. And you really got to fight them off. I mean, it's it can be tough, and I know there are people who have gotten in the middle of it, and you know, sometimes you have injuries that pop up, and you're just not able to finish.
There's things that are outside of your control.
But I work physically at this, But I also, there's mental things I do as well, you know, working on meditation and also positive self-talk. That's one thing over the last couple of years I've had to get better at, because even in the middle of a workout that's really hard, and sometimes it starts creeping in that, oh, am I good enough to be doing this? I'm not good enough to be out here with these guys. It's like, no, you absolutely are. If you continue to push and put in the work, you can hang with any of these guys out here. But, you know, telling yourself you can't, that's not going to get you there. Right. So I got to flip that mindset. So I've been doing a lot of mindset reading, like, you know, listening to podcasts about that, and just how to really get that strong mindset. Again, I'm putting in the work physically, but it's got to be mentally solid as well.
And does your Christian faith play any role in any of this?
Big time, big time. Yeah, you know, that's another thing I think about when I'm out there too, in Michigan, in Spain especially. One, just thanking God for the ability to be out here. Right. I mean, without Him, I don't think I'd be able to do this. I mean, it's taxing, it's tough. But through His strength, through His grace, I mean, I can do anything through Him. Right. I mean, it's absolutely my spiritual
Scott
faith.
also said that, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me.
Yep, I love that one. That runs through my mind when I'm doing those things. Is I just, you know, when it gets tough, I look to the sky, I look to God, and I say, thank you so much for allowing me to be out here and doing this. Yeah. I'm so grateful that it came into my life, and I know He had a hand in that. You know, there's a reason I'm doing what I'm doing today, and He had a big part in that, introducing into my life.
Well, what a blessing. Yeah. So, Nick Jasmer, we hope that you have a great Grandma's Marathon. You'll have to let us know if you get under that 3-minute mark, and, you know, if there's people are looking for the Headwaters Triathlon Club. Do you have a Facebook group? Or
So we do, yeah. We have a Facebook group. If you want, you can reach out to me as well. But I'd love to, if you're interested, I'd love to get you connected. And another great thing about the Headwaters Triathlon Club, you know, it's a triathlon club, but the great thing is nowadays, it's not just triathlon. It's coming into more multi-sport. You know, again, if you're not a swimmer, they have bike run events. You know, like it's a place for anybody and everyone. Yeah. And again, if you're not, you're like, I'd love to do a triathlon, but I'm not a swimmer. Great. We'd love to have you. I'd love to help you out and get you to that point where you could do your first triathlon.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you, Nick Jasmer.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.
Yes.